If you want the most amount of LP possible for the least amount of work, then this video is going to be for you, as these are the 10 easiest champions to climb with in Season 16. Now, to make it on this list, there's only two requirements that we have. The champions have to be ranked S tier or above and have a very low barrier to entry, making them the perfect picks for anybody to just pick up and start climbing on straight away. Because at SkillCapped, we believe League shouldn't be as complicated as literally everybody makes it out to be. Climbing isn't about learning crazy strategies or the theoretical macro nonsense where you're expected to just pause the game, analyze 20 different factors, and then make the perfect decision after that. It's ridiculous. Now, although stuff like this, it does sound great in theory, let's be honest about it. None of it actually ever works in your games, does it? That's because the ELO you're playing in is a completely different game, and we get that, which is why we focus on teaching you practical fundamentals for every role that's not just easy to apply, but are proven to get you climbing and get you climbing fast, as we do what nobody else does. Take players just like you, find out what's holding you back from climbing, and build our content from the ground up around what actually gets results for the average player. And we're so confident that this works, we back it all up with a rank up guarantee, which means climb at least 5 divisions while you are actively using our service, or we'll give you every penny back. Plus, a 30-day refund change of mind policy on top of that. There's literally zero risk to doing this today. So access your exclusive discount code using the link in the description or pinned comment below and start your climb today. So starting off, we have our first top lane pick, a champion that was already amazing last season but has somehow only gotten stronger with the top lane role quest. That, of course, is Dr. Mundo. If you like being so insanely tanky that players basically tickle you with their damage while also being able to completely one-shot them at the same time, yeah, that's not balanced. The main weakness of Mundo has always been his early lane phase, but in Season 16, with the new changes to home guards, being forced to take a bad recall is so much less punishing than it used to be, as you can just get back to lane so incredibly fast that you barely lose anything nowadays. Not to mention, even in his more difficult matchups, you can just look to sit back, farm with his Q, and focus on surviving. And even then, if you hit a few cleavers on your opponent, you're gonna often end up out-sustaining and even out-poking them anyway. When Dr. Mundo truly comes online, though, is after you pick up a few health items. Basically, your goal is to get Warmogs as fast as possible, but to do this, you need the health requirement. So what the top Mundo players are doing is immediately rushing 3 Giants belts, and then build into Warmogs, at which point you become completely unstoppable regardless of your matchup, as you can just take any trade, any poke, and just heal up from your Warmogs, at which point you want to take over the lane and push for turret plates, which Mundo takes extremely well, especially with the new Demolish, as without a doubt he is one of the best split pushing and side lane tanks in the entire game, which again is a strategy that only got stronger this season. And even when you group, Mundo's still one of the best tanks in the game right now. Sure, you might not have any hard CC, but between your insane tankiness and surprisingly high damage with him, you're a nightmare for teams to deal with. Now for some quick tips. Although Mundo's kit is pretty straightforward, there's a lot of players who misuse his W. Now how this works is that there's 2 parts to his W. When you first use it, for the first 0.75 seconds, he stores up to 95% of the damage dealt as this gray health that you see right here. Then the second part is you can either let it run out and heal for 50% of that, or if you reactivate it while near a champion, you're going to heal for 100%, not that 50%, which means you ideally want to press it when you know you're going to take a big chunk of burst and then reactivate it while they're still in range. Next is that once you reach level 16, your ultimate gains a new effect, increasing the initial healing and healing over time based on how many champions are nearby. And lastly, your E is not only an auto attack reset, but also a great tool to both harass and push waves with in lane, as if used to last hit a minion, will swat it forward, dealing damage to everything that it passes through. Now for runes, pick up Grasp, Demolish, and then either Second Wind versus ranged or Bone Plating versus melee, and Overgrowth, with Inspiration as your secondary for free boots so you can reach your Warmogs faster, and Biscuits to just help with the early lane phase. Now when it comes to items, rush those 3 Giants belts into Warmog's armor first, then build into Heartsteel. From there, you're going to have some options. Titanic Hydra for more damage, Spirit Visage versus AP, or Deadman's versus AD. Rounding out your build with items like Overlords, Thornmail, Randuins, or even Jack's Show. As for our next top lane pick, we have a champion I'm willing to bet not a single person expected here, so a little bit of a surprise for you. Singed. Now before you go start flaming me in the comments here about how Singed isn't easy, as you need to know all about proxying and mind games where you flash on the spot, flip somebody over a wall, and teleport to a ward, no, you don't need to do either of these. Last season, Singed got one of the biggest buffs imaginable that has not only made him far easier to pick up, but when combined with the new Season 16 items, has made him the undisputed undisputed, highest win rate top laner across practically every single elo bracket. Now what changed here is that now Singed Q essentially executes low health minions, making it so you always get the last hit as long as they're poisoned. This previously was not the case, and in large part why proxying on Singed became more or less mandatory, as last hitting was just so incredibly abysmal. But when played like a normal laner, Singed is deceptively strong right now, as not only is his wave clear insane, it's really difficult for most top laners to interact with him or even do anything about it, as you need to either match his wave clear while not getting hit by his poison or look for an all-in, at which point Singed, well, just kinda does Singed things and just flips you away, you know? Then after that, once you get to the mid-late game, he just transitions into a great, high-damage, very annoying AP tank. And you can just go to a side lane, push out a couple of waves, and then just group up with your team, or even look for a flank and just run around everybody, poisoning them all and slowing them with your Rylai's, creating a ton of pressure, all while being practically immortal thanks to your ultimate combined with Protoplasm Harness. This item, it's absolutely insane on Singed right now, as the healing it provides scales off your resistances, which Singed gets in bulk from his ultimate. For the build, grab this Conqueror page with Nimbus Cloak and Celerity as your secondaries, taking Ghost and Flash as your summoners. Item-wise, you're going to want to rush Liandry's into Rylai's, into Protoplasm, and then Jack's Show. Finishing off the build with either Force of Nature versus AP, Deadman's versus AD, Randuin's versus Crit, or Riftmaker for some extra damage. So everybody already knows how easy and strong Nasus is as a champion. Despite being completely useless early on, you just farm up with Q, but then mid to late game comes around and you're suddenly a complete monster. Only why you never see him in a video like this is that he's actually surprisingly difficult to play as. Yeah, you just end up getting zoned and falling massively behind if you don't know what you're doing. However, players are finally starting to realize they've been playing him in the wrong lane this entire time. Jungle Nasus has been taking over and completely removes his biggest weaknesses, letting him scale practically for free, as now you get up to 80 stacks from a single clear of your jungle. And with the addition of Phaelites, it's not only harder to invade you, but much harder for junglers to gank in general, meaning even if the enemy jungler tries to punish your weak early game by snowballing the game, it's not going to be as effective as it once was. Truly, his only weakness now is just his first clear being slightly slower than most other junglers, meaning you're going to want to pad the opposite side from them to secure the first crab. But really, even if that's not possible, giving up double scuttle to scale on Nasus is definitely a worthwhile trade. But even then, it's not like this is a pick that only exists to scale. Nasus has some of the strongest ganks in the game thanks to his W, and once you make it to level 6, you basically beat out every meta AD jungler, as you already have a ton of stacks, which when combined with your Wither and ultimate allows you to just completely stat check them. And as we know, the longer the game goes on, the stronger you get, basically putting your opponents on a timer. Now for runes, grab this Fleet Footwork page with Inspiration as your secondary for free boots and approach velocity, which helps massively for getting onto targets. Item-wise, you can either rush Trinity Force if you want some damage with Protoplasm Harness second, which is yet another reason this pick is so strong, due to the heal scaling off the resistance Nasus gains from his ultimate. Or instead of that, you could just opt for a more tanky route with Protoplasm first into Iceborne Gauntlet. Rounding out your build with Jack Show third, and then either Spirit Visage, Randuin's, or Frozen Heart, depending on what you need. But if you don't want to do that and you're looking to have more impact in the early game, our next pick is a champion every jungle main looking to climb should be abusing right now, and that is Xin Zhao, and is living proof that sometimes the simplest kits do end up being the strongest. Zen's early game has always been basically unmatched. 1v1s or small skirmishes, his consistent damage and healing make him absolutely insane. But even then, he's one of the strongest and easiest to execute early game gankers out there, as you can just walk into a lane, dive in with your E, or hit W first to extend the range, then follow up with a Q auto reset for a quick burst of damage and knockup, making him fantastic at securing leads and pressuring the map, especially when combined alongside the jungle tech Zen mains have been abusing, consisting of starting Raptors, doing red into Krugs, and then basing for a longsword before heading to Wolves, which enables him to get to Scuttle on time with a longsword advantage, giving you insanely high potential to snowball right from the start of the game. And if you're interested in learning that clear for Zen, as well as many other champions, be sure to check out our newly updated jungle clear course, where you can learn the fastest possible world record jungle clears for every meta champion, including helpful subtitles with everything you could ever need to shave up to 10 seconds off your next clear. But Zen's biggest weakness has always been falling off late game. However, in patch 26.03, this definitely was addressed, and Zen gained some huge buffs to both the scaling on his passive and E attack speed, making his late game far stronger now and enabling Zen to scale surprisingly well into the mid and late game, dealing a ton of damage and with his ultimate still remaining incredibly hard to kill. Now, for runes, we suggest this Conquer rune page with free boots and Cosmic Insight as your secondaries. For items, start Red Smite and Rush Sundered Sky as your first item. In most games, you can go Cleaver second, but if the game's going to be a little bit slower, you could instead go for Titanic Hydra second to improve your clear speed and make you a little more tankier. Either way, you're going to want Cleaver third. From there, round out your build with typical bruiser items like Death's Dance, Guardian's Angel, Sterix, or even Endless Hunger. Alright, moving over to mid lane now, our first suggestion is going to be Malzahar. Now, if you're somebody who struggles with wave control, trading, or maybe your mechanics just aren't really what they used to be, Malzahar is going to be the perfect champion for climbing this particular season. And what makes him so effective is his ability to just completely shut down his lane opponent no matter what champion they are. All of this while still just chilling horizontal straight in your chair like a lazy bum. As once you get through the first few levels, all you need to do is walk up to a wave, press E and W, and you are done and free to do whatever the heck you want to do. Be that base, look for a roam, whatever it is, while your opponent is just perpetually stuck in lane, spending the whole game answering the minion waves you're constantly pushing. This not only completely nullifies every lane opponent, keeping you incredibly safe, but gives you all of the priority and pressure on the map to move around and help with whatever shenanigans your solo queue teammates are trying to pull off. And of course, once you hit level 6, you can outplay everybody by just pressing R, making your roams, gank setup absolutely amazing. Now, what's crazy is that even as the game progresses, Malzahar remains super strong as you can continue to just quickly farm waves and build massive CS leads over your opponent. And once you have Rylai's, your team fighting is insane as you can spread ease and just slow the entire enemy team while they slowly die to your damage over time, while always having the ability to just press R on anybody trying to dive your backline. Now, for runes, Comet does slightly outperform Aerie as your keystone, with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm, taking Free Boots and Triple Tonic as your secondary. Now, as for your build, rush Blackfire Torch into Liandry's and then Rylai's, rounding out your build with Deathcap and Zhonya's. And speaking of outplaying your opponents with your R, nobody does this quite as well as our second mid lane pick, Annie. Annie has always been the champion you think about first when you talk about easy to play mid laners, but for the past few patches, she's basically been non-existent in the meta. It's kind of crazy. However, after her recent buffs from last patch, she's back and back with a vengeance. Riot massively increased her Q damage and reduced her E cooldown. And this is a huge deal because E has always been the ability you maxed last. Now Annie's E sits at a flat 10-second cooldown at all ranks, which means you're now able to get massive value from it. Whether you're using it for the movement speed to get back onto the map, get in range, or to generate an extra passive stack for a stun, Annie can now do it all way more frequently. Now, although Annie's lane phase is typically seen as pretty weak, this isn't actually true, as she has the second highest base auto attack range in the entire league roster, making her extremely strong in lane if you're constantly looking to poke your opponent with Qs and autos. But undoubtedly, Annie's biggest strength does come in her ability to set up ganks, looking for big engages and burst down squishy targets with her ultimate. And she thrives at roaming around the map and helping her team in skirmishes, which should be your #1 goal on Annie. You want to be as active on the map as possible. Now, as for the rune page, don't be baited into going into Electrocute. While Annie is definitely a bursty champion, she also thrives in the longer fights where she gets multiple spell rotations out. This is why you want to take Comet, which also procs constantly off your Tibbers and E-Reflect damage. Pair this up with Scorch for more poke and a stronger lane phase, and then Cashback and Triple Tonic as your secondaries. Cashback is going to help you hit your core items faster, and Triple Tonic is great as not only does Annie gain huge value from it at level 6, but as she's incredibly reliant on both Q and W, the Elixir of Skill helps her get an extra point in W earlier into the game. As for the build, grab Malignance as your first item to get the lower cooldown on your ultimate, then work towards Storm Surge. This 2-item core is going to basically give you all the damage you need to one-shot carries, at which point we're going to want to transition into items that help keep your damage relevant outside of just dealing burst. And this is why you're going to want Rylai's and Liandry's, both of which get applied by your Tibbers, giving you perma damage over time and an annoying slow to help clean up fights. all while finishing up your build with Deathcap. Alright, moving over to ADC now. Our first champion is one that, man, I'm gonna be honest, we really try to avoid putting in these lists because she just ends up being in every single one of them. But honestly, not putting her here, it'd be a huge, complete injustice to the game. We're of course talking about Miss Fortune. For any bot laner looking for an easy ADC to pick up, nobody comes even remotely close to Miss Fortune. She's one of the few ADCs that require very minimal mechanics to pull off and pull off well, and her damage is absolutely crazy, as with just an auto into Q, you can completely chunk, if not one-shot, most squishy targets. Now, as for lane, last hitting is super simple with her passive. W is going to make positioning, avoiding damage, and just generally getting around the map back to lane effortless, and her Q makes her trading pattern super strong and easy to understand. Then, once you get into team fighting, as the bulk of your damage comes from your R, all you need to do is focus on positioning and finding good angles. Plus, with the Season 16 role quest and the combination of cashback and triple tonic, she's able to hit her item spike so much sooner compared to other champions, meaning you end up always ahead of the curve, keeping your damage ridiculously high at all points of the game. Now for the build, we highly suggest going lethality in the majority of games with a Ghost Blade Rush into Collector, and then IE and Lord Dominic's rounding out with Rapid Fire Cannon and GA. Also, remember you don't need Berserker Greaves, so pick up either Swiftness Boots, Steel Caps, or Mercs instead. Coupled with this First Strike rune page with Mana Flow Band and Gathering Storm as your secondaries. Now our second pick is more of a conventional auto attack based marksman, but arguably the easiest of them all. Jinx. And I get it, I know what you're thinking. Jinx does sound difficult on paper due to being an immobile marksman. Her stats in low elo though, they really don't lie. And she's overall just one of the most dominant, easy to pick up, and consistent marksmen out there patch after patch after patch. What makes Jinx easier than most other marksmen is that although she's a hyper scaler, she lacks the weaker lane phase that most scaling champions really have to deal with. As with her fishbones, you're able to gain the push in basically every lane. Then with push, you can just swap to minigun and take advantage of the free attack speed, weaving in fishbones autos on your opponents for some free poke. Then in the late game, even as an immobile carry, Jinx is much safer than most, as not only does her E do a great job at self-peeling, but just her pure range and rocket form allows you to stay safe for most of the fight, at least until you get that first reset and completely take over the fight. But to make sure you do that, here's the build that you're going to have to follow. After the buff to Hex Optics, it has a massive 54% win rate compared to the 51% on either Yuntal or Kraken, and buying Phantom Dancer into IE right after has over a 60% win rate as a 3-item core. And from here, you're then going to want to pick up Lord Dom's or Mortal Reminder, and then opt for items like GA, Bloodthirster, or Mercurial Scimitar to round out your build. Then for runes, Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cut Down, opting for the ADC staple of Triple Tonic and Cashback as your secondary to compound the extra gold from your quest. Last up, let's cover our recommended support picks for this patch. In Season 16, enchanters are stronger than ever, and our first suggestion, and arguably the strongest enchanter of all, is Nami. Nami is a champion that does have an incredibly high skill ceiling, yet also has one of the lowest and most effective skill floors in the entire game, making putting in the work to play her well worth it. And what makes Nami so incredibly strong and easy to play right now is how insanely versatile she is. You basically fit every single team composition, and it's a great blind pick as she brings so much to every team she's in. You've got great engage and disengage with your ult and movement speed buffs, amazing sustain or poke in lane through your W, damage amp and catch potential with your E and Q, and overall, just solid peels. You can play with AD or AP champions. Basically, Nami does everything you want from a support, and she does it all really, really well. And despite being an enchanter, her damage and playmaking potential is extremely good still. During lane, you should definitely be looking to play fairly aggressively. Ideally, your ADC is going to move up for trades, and you use your E for extra damage, while you follow up with a W to heal them, which will then bounce onto the enemy for even more poke. But let's be honest with that, that's probably never going to happen. So you instead, every time you have Mana Flow Band ready, E yourself, walk up, auto, and then W and use the movement speed to back off, and you're going to come out ahead in the trade. Truthfully though, the hardest part about learning Nami is going to be landing your Q. But the biggest tip we can give you on landing that Q is to ideally always look to slow the target with your E first before attempting to land it. Otherwise, use it as a follow-up off other CC like your own ultimate, but even then it's always easier to land your Q to peel rather than to set up. For your support item, Dreammaker is the go-to in most games, but you could definitely opt for Solstice Slay in the more difficult matchups. Then work towards Imperial Mandate as your only must-have item due to its synergy with your E. And from here, build Echoes of Helia and Moonstone, rounding out your build with Dawn Core. Now for a top tip here, as Nami does have amazing AP scalings, it's also going to be great to buy an early Dark Seal and look to upgrade it to Medjai's if you have stacks. As for runes, grab this Airy page and then pick up Magical Footwear and Jack of all trades as your secondaries. This just allows you to hit your item spikes a little bit faster while also getting some free ability haste in AP. However, if you're somebody who doesn't enjoy enchanters and you want a little more playmaking, a little more roam potential, yet you struggle to find success on some of the more difficult champions like Thresh or maybe even Pyke, you have to be playing Maokai right now. Almost every engaged support in the league roster is reliant on hooks, skill shots, or well-timed engages to be impactful right now, but not Maokai. He is completely brain dead with his entire kit being point and collect. Just land your W onto the enemy ADC, walk through him, and use your Q knock to knock him back into your ADC, making you ridiculously hard to deal with in lane if you have an aggressive ADC, as all it takes for you to get a kill is for you to get in range of your W. Then transitioning into the mid and late game, Maokai does continue to be one of the best engaged supports in the entire game, as by using your ultimate from off angles, you can set up fights or look for picks, or even use it for a tool to disengage if you have to. Plus, with his saplings, getting and controlling vision is effortless, as you can just throw a sapling in every bush before you move up to ward, keeping you safe throughout the game. For items, Solstice Slay is going to be a no-brainer here. Then for your first item, grab Trailblazer, which helps you get in range for your W, as well as helping your team follow up your engage. After that, grab Bandle Pipes, as Maokai is one of the best users of the item due to his abundance of CC in his kit, at which point you can either go Lock It by default or grab Knight's Vow to keep a single fed carry alive. Then rounding out your build with again either Lock It or Knight's Vow, or personal survivability items like Protoplasm. Now as for runes, Aftershock is the go-to with Font of Life, and then either Bone Plating versus melee or Second Wind versus range supports and Overgrowth. Then as Maokai is so reliant on flash to engage, grab Cosmic Insight in the Inspiration Tree, coupled with Biscuit Delivery for a little more sustain. And there you have it, the 10 simplest and easiest champions to climb with in Season 16. If you're looking for more information on how to play any of these champions or builds featured in this guide, be sure to check out our Smurf commentaries page, where our challenger coaches walk you through every stage of the game step by step, and that's on top of our full library of expertly curated courses all updated for Season 16, which are designed for players of all skill levels, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned veteran, giving you everything you need to climb this season, which you can gain access to all of it right now by using the exclusive discount link in the pinned comment or description below. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your ranked climbs, and we'll see ya in the next one.